2000 to 2010, a time where prescriptions are handed out faster by a doctor than having a conversation with one. Depression amongst individuals is on the rise. Depression, being a major handicap in daily life for anyone suffering from it, has been the leading cause of school shootings in this decade. With guns being easily accessible by many people and some teens, school shootings have become more and more frequent due to severe cases of depression. In 2000 to 2010, there were 30 different school-related shootings in America. These shootings ranged from minor to severe catastrophes. On March 21, 2005, in one of the more prominent shootings of the decade, Jeff Weiss of Red Lake Indian Reservation, Minnesota, murdered 9 students, injured 7 others, and then took his own life. Jeff Weiss was suffering from depression due to losses in his immediate family and the quality of his life. He had been prescribed Prozac to help with his depression and had even had his dose increased a little bit before his deadly rampage. His action brought about a public controversy about whether or not adolescents should be allowed to take Prozac. The depression drug Prozac has been studied insufficiently with children and adolescents. People debated that maybe the drug had something to do with Jeff Weiss's drastic measures, and maybe the Prozac did more harm than good to children and adolescents who are suffering from depression. Sadly, not much came from this controversy and horrible tragedy because Prozac is still on the market today for adults, children, and adolescents. In 2000 to 2010, the tipping point on the medical marijuana debate took a favorable turn for pro-legal supporters. In one decade, 10 states and our nation's capital passed laws allowing either medical use or recreational use. This was a major turn for the legalization of marijuana in the United States. More than half of the legal states we have today legalized in 2000 to 2010. These states passed legislature at a state level that made marijuana legal for certain people with specific ailments. These laws varied from state to state, allowing different amounts for patients that are considered personal use for medical needs. In some states, cultivation by patients was legalized, but with heavy guidelines and stipulations. These guidelines and stipulations regulate how much any one patient may cultivate, have dried for use, and where they can cultivate medical marijuana. Even with the heavy guidelines and stipulations, pro-legal supporters saw this as a battle won in the fight to legalize medical marijuana. However, the war against legalization battled on. The laws and guidelines were only legal state by state, which we all know state law does not override federal law. Under federal law, marijuana is a Schedule I drug, which is considered one of the most dangerous drugs in our world today. The differences between state and federal laws caused many of headaches for those who became medical marijuana patients. Even though most states passed provisions that do not allow discrimination against patients, employers are still capable of firing someone over a failed drug test for marijuana due to the differences in state and federal laws. In the state, it is legal, but federally, it is not. Therefore, any employer can fire someone over a failed drug test when the patient has a written prescription for medical marijuana because it is against federal law. This allows for a loophole in the system that has caused many issues for patients in the legal states. Not allowing a patient to work, pay taxes, and contribute to society is the result of this loophole in the system. The result of this is the less taxes coming into the state and the federal government spending even more tax money to fight this war on medical marijuana. The environmental crisis movement popularity became widespread in the first decade of the 21st century. In 2000, NAPA argued to Congress that the current environmental protection system could not sustain and deliver the kind of world Americans wanted in the future. Later, political activist Al Gore began advocating the need to prevent global warming and enact environmentally friendly policies. The nation's population got involved in the major uproar over the Earth's environmental future. The controversy over what should or should not be done had come to a boiling point. Al Gore's movie, An Inconvenient Truth, depicted facts on the physical state of our world and what us as citizens could do to change the direction we are headed. Some people denounced the movie as nothing but political hogwash, but some listened. The Earth's environmental crisis had begun. People began wanting environmentally friendly everything so they could say they were doing their part. Pollution, climate change, and the ozone hole and efficient energy sources were now under major consideration on a widespread level.
In 2004, Martha Stewart was imprisoned for stock fraud she committed in 2001.
Yes.
She was not eligible for good behavior, and when asked what she thought about this, she commented saying that she hoped she'd be free before spring gardening. She was eligible for jobs that paid 12 to 40 cents an hour. November 19, 2003, Arnold Schwarzenegger becomes the governor of California. Some of his major policies were voting no to driver's licenses for illegal immigrants, despite coming to this country with $20 in his pocket. Another was voting no to the legalization of weed, except for medical purposes, even after admitting using. He stated, "I'm for gun control. I'm a peace-loving guy." In 2004, a tsunami hit Indonesia. It was caused by a volcanic eruption underwater that was 600 miles long. This tsunami was considered one of the top deadliest tsunamis in our history, killing 155,000 people and 500,000 were injured. There was $10 billion in damages to the country. In 2005, Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans, covering an estimated 80% of the land underwater. There was 20 feet waters in certain places, and they had to move people to the Aerodome in Houston. 3,000 people were rescued by boat and air, 705 people were missing. It was one of the 5 top deadliest hurricanes in the United States history, with a recorded $80 billion in damages.
There used to be a gas leak somewhere. This was gasoline or some kind of oil.
The totaling estimations of fatalities for this hurricane was over 1,800 people. 2006. Pluto's not a planet! In April of 2007, a man snuck onto the Virginia Tech campus and killed 32 students before committing suicide. In 2011, the Department of Education fined Virginia Tech $55,000 for failing to warn the Virginia campus next door. In 2007, Botox is declared the most popular cosmetic surgery in the United States. Many don't know that the product is made of snake venom and is also very temporary. Many left with blurred vision and bad reactions such as shut eyes, droopy lids, and bruising of the skin. In 2008, America experienced the crazed trend of the pregnant man, a 35-year-old man who was born a woman and pregnant by frozen sperm. He was famous as the pregnant father, and same-sex partners reshaped traditional ideas about mom and dad. Now he and his wife have completed the family they've always dreamed of, and the 37-year-old appears to have started taking testosterone again to help him develop his muscular physique.
Okay, friends, I just got this video.
In October of 2009, Obama, 1 year into his first term as president, wins the Nobel Peace Prize. To this, the country responds in a synchronous.
Grandma, turn around and look scared. Isn't that funny?
It was decided upon by a 5-member Norwegian board. They intended to build his global support due to his young administration. His ideas were promises of disarmament and diplomacy that were too good to ignore. Obama donated the prize of $1.4 million to charity. Roosevelt and Woodrow were the only other ones who have won as presidents as well. 2000 to 2009 was considered the reality TV decade. It was taking over every network. American Idol, Jersey Shore, The Real World, Fear Factor, 16 and Pregnant, Big Brother, Bachelorette, Housewives, John and Kate Plus 8, and America's Next Top Model are just to name some of the top 10. But 15 of the top 20 shows of our American culture were reality.
Yes. She's wonderful. I'd give anything to be like.
I'm not trashy, unless I drink.
40% call it overdone and scripted. Some think it's totally made up. Yet it's occupying 80% of our television. The future of reality TV is said to be through the internet, where anyone with a camera can be a celebrity nowadays. From 2003 till 2004, the cupcake craze was rated #1 for 96 weeks. Sales hit $24 billion, and it increased sales by 1,600%. Ironically enough, the 2000s was a decade of health crazes. Some of these included exergaming, which is video games included in your exercise. Another was dancing through Zumba and cardio stripteases. Participants of these went up 35%.
In May of 2000, the world is introduced into GPS, a software system that triangulates your position and location by linking up to software from satellites in outer space. In July of 2000, Toyota introduces the Prius Hybrid, a brand new type of car that runs off of electricity instead of gasoline. It's a new invention that changes the world in many different ways. In October of 2000, AT&T introduces the text message. This helps change America in so many different ways and helps change the life of everyday people around the world. It helps make life extremely easy for you to message one another instantly. It's just so freaking awesome. In October of 2001, a year later after the AT&T introduced the text message, Apple releases the Apple iPod. The iPod is a musical player where you can take anywhere and listen to your favorite songs daily. 2003, the social media craze kicks off. The social media benefits the world by helping kids gain confidence from online interacting, building diverse social groups, and also helping you keep in touch with your friends in faraway places. In 2002, camera phones hit the market, help paving the way for new smartphone technology to ultimately help benefit the life of an everyday person daily. In 2003, we gained light of the Human Genome Project, a research project with the primary goal of helping figure out what the base pairs were in the DNA sequence, leading the way to stem cell research. In 2004, DirecTV introduced its first bundle package with over 100 of channels and your own DVR system, your digital video recording system, with 234,000 subscribers in its first quarter and earning over $2.3 billion worth in sales. In 2006, the Nintendo Wii launches, selling over 100 million units and earning the award of the best gaming system by E3. This system helped you have hands-on control over everything and anything you did in the gaming system or using the software that it provided for you. And with obesity in mind, Nintendo Wii released a line of video games that would allow many to exercise at home than at the gym. This actually led the way for people to live more healthier lifestyles. In 2007, the ever-dominating iPhone hit the market. It catered to businessmen as well as the everyday working mother. It allowed them to access emails, grocery lists, and recipes on the go. With the versatility of the device, iPhone would introduce applications that would make life easier. So easy, society would adopt the term, "There's an app for that." As well, paying bills has become a thing of the past. An attachment would be added that enabled the user to make transactions from home. In turn, digital web-based TV was introduced, a 24-hour television broadcasting system on the internet. Like the iPhone, Apple introduced another astonishing breakthrough in technology, the iPad. The iPad was the first of its kind. It afforded the capabilities of a full-size computer into a compact version. As a result of Apple controlling the electronic industry, other major corporations would put their version of the iPhone and label it a smartphone. In 2013, 3D printing was introduced. 3D printing gave us, the user, the ability to bring what they saw on the computer to life. Some new ideas were a fireable gun and even a full-sized car. The presidential election of 2000 was won by George W. Bush. This would be the second time in history the son of a former president would be elected head of state. While in office, his administration would combat terrorism and immigration as a result of terrorist attack in New York City and other parts of the nation. While in addition, he would be scrutinized over the invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan and other policies that robbed the Americans of their constitutional rights. In 2008, the presidential election would take a historical turn. For the first time in American history, an African American would be elected head of state. His name is Barack Obama. Obama's administration would take on the major recession, the bank bailouts, and introduce Obamacare to the world. In 2012, he would be reelected again for the second time and push for democratic ideas to be met. Obama helped pave the way for new health care reform.
The year 2000 marked the beginning of a new state of paranoia within the United States, Muslim jihadists waged a holy war against America and its allies by attacking interests, both foreign and domestic, and insinuating two wars in the Middle East. In the United States, an increase in border protection, along with bills passed, would rob many Americans of their civil liberties. As well, new laws granted the government powers in which many Americans were enraged. Furthermore, it prompted quick response to the revamping of the emergency management community, and in the summer of 2011, through the use of advanced technology and military force, the U.S. captured Osama bin Laden, leader of the terrorist network Al-Qaeda. On October 12, 2000, the first of a series of attacks against America and its allies was executed on the U.S. Navy destroyer USS Cole. While refueling in the port of Yemen, a suicide bomber navigating a small boat loaded with explosives detonated itself alongside the destroyer. The suicide attack killed 17 members of the ship's crew, wounded many, and seriously damaged the ship. The following year, on October 11, 2001, 19 militants with connections to the Islamic extremist group Al-Qaeda hijacked 4 airliners and carried out suicide attacks against targets in the United States. 2 planes were flown into the towers of the World Trade Center in New York City. A 3rd plane hit the Pentagon, and the 4th plane crashed in a field in Pennsylvania. As a result, September 11 was coined 9/11, and the nation rose with patriotism. Furthermore, the U.S. would go on to pass initiatives to combat terrorism. Its first was invading Afghanistan. On October 7, 2001, with 9/11 in mind, America invades Afghanistan. Its primary mission was to capture Osama bin Laden, the mastermind behind the 9/11 attacks and leader of the terror group Al-Qaeda, and disrupt the power of the Taliban, an extreme fundamentalist group which had been in power since 1996 and guilty of violating several human rights, especially those against women. Identified as Operation Enduring Freedom, the nation would go on to fight a war which they believed would end quickly. Our fighting continues to this day. Soon after, the Bush administration would further implement other countries and accuse many of harboring terrorists or assisting in acts of terrorism. Iraq and its dictator Saddam Hussein are accused of building and obtaining weapons of mass destruction and pursuing chemical and nuclear endeavors in hopes of attacking the U.S. and its allies. With no solid evidence, the United States would yet wage another war in the Middle East despite its ongoing efforts in Afghanistan. Later it would be found Iraq had ended its nuclear and chemical programs in the early 90s. On March 19, 2003, with the U.S. leading the invasion, America and its allies entered Iraq. The attack was initiated with a series of guided bombings followed by a troop invasion. However, the allies were met by heavy resistance from guerrilla fighters using unheard of tactics. The newly emerging enemy would attack and quickly blend in with the population, making it hard to identify combatants from local nationals. Likewise, they began the use of unconventional weapons. IEDs and suicide bombings were the preferred choice of most combatants. Thus, coalition forces quickly learned to adapt to an ever-changing battlefield, and on October 2011, now President Obama began a complete withdrawal from Iraq. Despite efforts, fighting continues between the American-backed Shia-led government and Sunni militant group. In response to the increase of terrorist activity, the U.S. would pass a bill that would heighten security and safeguard the nation from terrorism. It would allow the government to conduct searches and seizures without warrant, monitor financial transactions as well as phone calls, detain and deport in secret, and detain individuals suspected of committing terrorists. What is known as the USA Patriot Act was considered unconstitutional in the eyes of most Americans. Many who opposed it claimed it an invasion of privacy and a violation of their civil rights, yet the government would ignore the arguments of the American people and continue its practices, resulting in the disruption of further attacks on American soil. As a result of the September 11 attacks and other natural disasters, the Bush administration enacted a series of laws and executive orders that would go on to affect American lives every day. The signing of the Department of Homeland Security Act of 2002 was the first of many. In it was created a cabinet-level department which would further coordinate and unify national homeland security efforts. It would be named the Department of Homeland Security, and its primary mission was to prevent further terrorist attacks on U.S. soil, reduce the vulnerability of the United States against terrorism, and minimize the damage and assist in the recovery from terrorist attacks that do happen in the United States. Thus, stricter rules were placed on individuals applying for visas to the United States. Border security was increased along the southwest border. The TSA would oversee all aviation safety to include stringent policies for those boarding planes, which later would be the focus of much controversy. Furthermore, the administration developed an information sharing strategy to target and identify both known and unknown personnel who may pose a threat to the U.S. Finally, it would create 3 important documents that would change and shape the way the emergency managing community reacted, with the National Incident Management System, the National Preparedness Guidelines, and the National Response Framework.